Hi. A stonecutter once got an assignment to cut a huge boulder and shape it. He looked at the boulder and thought, that's a lot of work I have ahead of me. Let me take a nap first. So he stretched, went and just lay down under his favorite tree. Suddenly, there was a huge commotion. And when he looked out, the king was walking down with his retinue. The king was sitting in his palanquin and looking down at everything. The stonecutter looked from the place he was lying down and thought, oh, for me to be the king, how lucky I would be. And lo, he became the king. Now he was sitting on the palanquin looking down at everything and feeling very, very proud of himself. He thought, I am now the lord of all I survey. And he looked far and wide, and that was the sun beating down on him. He tried to avoid the sun. He tried, but the sun kept beating down on him. And he was relentless. Not his pleas, not the rage of the king, nothing mattered to the sun. So now, the stonecutter, who was then the king, looked to the sun and said, for me to be the sun, how lucky I would be. And lo, the stonecutter now became the sun. He was so excited, he blazed down on everything. He went scorching fields and men, drying up the ocean, and having a good time being the sun. And suddenly, there was something dark right in front of him, and he couldn't beat down through that. He looked round, and that was the cloud. He couldn't beat down through the cloud. So he looked down at the cloud and said, for me to be that cloud, how lucky would I be? And lo, the stonecutter, who was then the king, who was then the sun, was now the cloud. As the cloud, he was so happy. He went blocking the sun and went raining everywhere, and there were torrents and torrents of rain, and it was flowing away with everything in its way. But for one thing, there was this huge stone boulder which wouldn't budge. The cloud poured down more rain and tried to budge this boulder. The boulder just wouldn't budge. The cloud looked down at the boulder and said, for me to be that boulder and be so strong, how lucky would I be? So now the stonecutter, who was then the king, who was then the sun, who was then the cloud, was now the boulder. He stood strong and firm when torrents and torrents of rain was taking everything away with it. And suddenly, ouch, ouch, ouch. What was that? He was being broken apart. And he looked round. That was the stonecutter. The stonecutter was using his chisel and hammer to break the stone apart. And the stone thought, for me to be the stonecutter, how lucky would I be? And immediately the stonecutter, who was then the king, who was then the sun, who was then the clouds, who was then the stone, was now back to being the stonecutter and happy with his life. My grandmother always told us, thank your stars, count your blessings. Sometimes we didn't understand her. But the older I get, the more I see the wisdom in these words. So, have you ever felt, I wish I had somebody else's life, only to realize later that you were far better than the other person? Thank you so much for listening to me. If you liked it, do hit the like button, subscribe to my channel. I also have a Facebook page called Smitha's Kaleidoscope. I would love you to go in there too. Thank you so much for watching.